Okay. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Today's topic of how to keep the momentum of Ramadan going for the rest of the year is about our purpose. One of the things Ramadan does more than anything else for us is that it realigns us with our purpose. What we're doing with our lives, what we're doing with our time, why we're doing it, right? What is the reason we're praying 5 times a day? We're giving sadaqah, we're fasting, we're trying to have good behavior, all these things. Why are we doing all these things? Why are we trying to control ourselves and doing all these things? Ramadan comes in and it basically kind of cleans us up and it refreshes us. It refreshes why we're trying, why our efforts are there in trying to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that I have not created jinn nor mankind except for one purpose, and that is to worship me. And, worshiping Allah is not just prayer and fasting and kind of those religious practices. It's something that goes into every aspect of our lives, right? Including our, how we interact with people, our relationships, our perspective on life, our attitude when something happens, right? Worshipping Allah is, when the woman whose son passed away, she was sitting at the grave of her son, weeping and crying, and the Prophet ﷺ passed by her and he told her, have patience. And she didn't realize it was him, and she's like, "What do you know about my pain?" basically. And then he just kept going. And then she realized later that was the Prophet ﷺ, so she goes, runs after him, and she apologizes to him. She says, I didn't know it was you. And he responds to her and says, the most important thing is your reaction at the moment of a difficulty, at the exact moment. That reaction in a time of difficulty has to do with how we worship Allah. It has to do with how we've enslaved ourselves to Allah. Because in those moments especially, any moment of difficulty, whether it's sadness or happiness or frustration or anger, the response that comes out of us depends on how much we are paying attention to Allah, right? So that's a part of worship as well. So here comes Ramadan, realigns us with our purpose for so many reasons, okay? How? So this is all about, this is where we're trying to activate our purpose. And I say activate because for a lot of us, I could say for myself, a lot of my year, too much of it passes and I know my purpose, but it's not at the forefront of my mind. And that's where I find myself, and maybe you find yourself as well, making mistakes because it's not actively there. It's not at the forefront of my mind. It's somewhere in the back, somewhere on the right or the left or somewhere in there. But it's not oh, this is exactly what I'm doing today. This is why I'm doing it, right? But Ramadan comes and does that for us. It comes and it tells us, it reminds us that this was the most important month, this special month where the Quran was revealed. And, the whole month is dedicated to this event, basically, right? Of the revelation of this book of Allah, this final message that would come to humanity. And so just the idea that this whole month is dedicated to this event, there's importance there that we absolutely have to pay attention to, okay? So if the book is important, right, and it's being given all this attention, right, 29, 30 days of fasting and worship and dua and charity and all this stuff, then there's something about this book that is really, really a big deal. And that the big deal around it needs to be active in my mind, in my heart, all year round for me to benefit. So, what are the ways that we are refocused in Ramadan? Number one, we're reminded of the importance of this book. And the importance of it is also a reminder that we are not alone. in this dunya to try to fend for ourselves. Allah gives us a clear guide to how we should think, how we should feel, how we should react, what we should prefer or desire. If we desire something that isn't okay with Allah, how to move away from that, right? Because we all have inclinations. All of us have our own inclinations that are not in line with what Allah accepts, right? How do I then say, okay, how do I move away from this inclination so that the power of it over me is diffused, and I can move towards something else and nurture a new inclination, or nurture more positive inclinations that I already have, right? Ramadan comes and reminds us of that. Ramadan comes and reminds us of the importance of dua, that one of the most important aspects of our lives is to turn to Allah and to ask Him, not only as a reminder that we cannot and Allah can, right? That we're unable and He is all able, but also it's also a way to express to Allah that we believe in Him, right? If I'm praying to Allah, that's an automatic kind of indirect way of me acknowledging that Allah, you exist, right? I'm asking you, so therefore for sure I believe you exist. So it's a way of reiterating La ilaha illallah. There's no God worthy of worship except Allah, right? Our dua. And dua is enhanced and increased during Ramadan. The quality of it gets better because we're begging. Shaitan is locked up, right? All these things. Ramadan comes and puts us in the groove of reading more Quran, right? How many of us we're reading more Quran in Ramadan, and then, with effort, because really it does take so much effort to keep it up, or to keep up more at least than you were doing before Ramadan, right? So maybe someone was reading 10 pages a day in Ramadan, right? Or 5. Let's say 5. You're reading 5 pages of Quran in Ramadan. Before Ramadan, you were reading 1. Maybe by the end of Ramadan, after Ramadan, now you're reading 3 consistently. That's a win, right? That is a win. Because Ramadan is supposed to be hyper crazy. Let me do my best. And then try to do more of what you did before Ramadan, after Ramadan. And then every year doing that, it's just going to keep increasing, inshallah, right? Okay. Now, how do we activate and keep our purpose clear and alive in our minds and hearts? There are so many ways to do this, but there are 2 main things I want to discuss with you today, inshallah. And I would love to hear your feedback, your comments, your whatever, your thoughts and reflections, or anything else that pops into your mind. Because I know when I'm listening in a talk or a lecture, I'm inspired by a lot of things that people say, and I'm like, oh, that made me think of this. So I would love to hear of what it made you think of, if anything. The first thing of the 2 things, how do we activate our iman, activate our purpose? We remember death often, okay? And I don't mean this morbidly, okay? So as we're talking about this, I want you to think this is a good thing. It is a good thing to remember death often, okay? I will start kind of on a secular path. Tim Ferriss, I'm not even sure exactly what he does, but I know he's like a coach. I don't even know what he does, honestly, but he's brilliant, okay? I think he's a philosopher. I honestly don't know. But he has a YouTube video, and if you just YouTube Tim Ferriss urgency, you'll find his video about urgency and how he connects death to urgency, and how for him he finds that the more he thinks about death, the better quality of life he has. And the points he makes are so beautiful, and one of the things that he shares that I really liked is he says that it helps you not procrastinate, because there's an urgency that's turned on when you're thinking of death constantly. And the reason he said that for him, it doesn't make him, it doesn't shut him down, rather it pushes him forward, is there's a deadline, right? So if I don't do it now, it won't get done, The other reason, and I love this so much, he said that to think of death in a way that doesn't cause you depression, but it pushes you to move, is to actually accept what you can control and to let go of what you cannot control. Okay. And that concept for me these days has been really helpful, because there's so much that's going on in the world right now. And you know, it's easy to feel guilty about not doing enough, and it's easy to feel like lost or overwhelmed and not even know what to do or where to start. And so going back to this idea that even a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, that a Muslim leaves what is not their business, right? You can kind of pull from that, that we do not, what's not our business is something that is not in our control. And when we start letting go of things that are not in our control, it frees us. Not like freeze, like it frees us emotionally. That load that we feel that we can't handle, usually it's because it's something we're holding on to that is not in our control. Okay, whether it's something somebody said to us that's not in our control, right? Or a financial situation. In some regard, a lot of our financial situations are not in our control. In other ways, we can move and get resourceful and things like that and make changes, and those things are in our control. You know, this virus, there's only so much that we can control, right? People are staying home, people are wiping down groceries, people are wearing masks everywhere and gloves. But I've heard on the news, and we hear a million different things that contradict each other all the time now, but I've heard on the news that the percentage of people contracting COVID uh, is higher in those who are staying at home versus those who are out working, like the doctors and the nurses, which, kind of doesn't make sense. And who knows, like, what that means. But subhanAllah, like, we do our best. But to live in like an elevated, at an elevated level of fear is trying to control things that is outside of our control. And that's not what we're meant to do. We are meant to look at exactly what we can control, do the best we can with that, and the rest you leave to Allah, right? That's what we do. And so remembering death often gives us the opportunity to do that. Why? Because number one, you've accepted that death is a reality. So that's something you can't control. It's going to happen to me. It's going to happen to you. It happens to everybody. Okay. So accepting it as a reality brings us a step closer to finding peace in our lives, because it's more of a mindset of accepting what you can't control. I can't control death, therefore I accept it. I'm good. Now the question becomes, what do I do to prepare for it? Right? Just like the Bedouin came to the Prophet ﷺ and asked him, he said, when is the day of judgment? Right? Can the what is it called? The Bedouin or any of us control when the day of judgment is? Can I bring it closer? Can I push it further? I can't do any of that. But the Prophet ﷺ asks him, what have you prepared for it? Right? That piece is the part that the Bedouin and me and you have control over. What have we prepared for it? So even in a time of difficulty, a time of like, high level anxiety, where people are scared of what's going to happen to the economy, what's going to happen. Sometimes it feels like, oh my God, are things going to become real violent and ugly around here? Who knows? Like, we don't know. There's so many unknowns and so many things that are hard to, it's impossible to know exactly what's going to happen or not going to happen. Are there going to be more of these unjust killings that are happening? What is going on? How is it going to change? We don't know. But we look at what's in front of us. We look at what we can do, and whatever that is for you, that's what we go forward and do. By the way, that is different for each person. Right? Life condition, personalities, abilities. Some of us are stronger in some areas than we are in others. And so we shouldn't necessarily, if we want to look at other people and what they're doing to get inspiration, to say, oh, maybe I can try that, great. But we don't look at other people and then feel like garbage for not doing necessarily what they're doing. Maybe that's not something I'm capable of doing. But I am capable of doing this other thing that person isn't really good at, or it's not their thing, or they're not inclined towards, right? So we have to ask ourselves, who am I? Who am I in this situation? What can I offer? What can I do? And then ask ourselves, what can I not do? And be okay with it, right? Be okay with what is out of your control. Find peace in it, because then we say, Ya Allah, you take care of that, right? So remembering death. The Prophet ﷺ told us, remember often the destroyer of pleasures. It sounds scary to even remember the destroyer of pleasures, right? If any of you, most of us have experienced someone close to us passing away, right? And in that time period, you're not really enjoying food. You're eating just to kind of get by, but you're not like, ooh, you know what I would love right now? You're not in that mind frame, right? You're not, you don't feel like doing anything. You feel almost like you don't feel like watching a movie. You don't feel like doing normal things that kind of ease you, entertain you, that are enjoyable in life, right? It's a destroyer of pleasures, right? Why is it important to remember though? Because that our purpose in this dunya leads us to death, right? Our lives, forget that last statement. Our lives end up in death in this dunya, right? And in our in Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us that to make the dua, especially in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna, right? Ya Allah, you love to pardon. Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa. Ya Allah, you are the all pardoner and you love to forgive, so please forgive us, pardon us, right? Pardon us from what? From the hellfire, right? But what happens before people are going to hell or heaven? Death happens before that. So it's almost like we're even skipping over that part in this dua, because it is important, but then there's something beyond it that's even more important, right? Death in itself is not a problem. It really isn't. Death is like, oh, okay, that's the next phase. The problem is getting there safely. That's really the issue, right? It doesn't matter when the day of judgment or is or isn't, or when it is. The problem is, what have I done up to the point where I leave this world and I'm incapable of doing anything else, right? That's the real issue at hand. And to be busy with that in a productive way is actually a beautiful way to keep our purpose activated, right? To keep death at the forefront. Like, I don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time. And that's why I'm going to sit on the floor and play with blocks with my children, right? That's why I'm gonna make time to visit my aunt or my uncle, or make sure I call my mom or visit my mom frequently, or or my father, or whatever it is that we're trying to do in this dunya for our that will flow into the akhirah. There's no time, right? There's no time to procrastinate. There's no time. We literally, even if we live for 80, 90 years, it's so short. It really is. I was watching a video of this one woman who's still alive, I think, 107 years old. 107, and mashallah, this lady is walking, cooking. She's so cute because she takes breaks while she's cooking. She'll like stir a little bit, stand a little bit, tell her daughters what to do and what not to do because they're doing it wrong. And then she sits down. She's like, I gotta take breaks. She's talking like me and you. Like totally there, and amazing. It's so beautiful. 107 years, right? But even then, which is very rare, that's gonna pass, right? I always think like it's hard for me sometimes to watch black and white movies because I get sad about the fact that those people in those movies, they were walking the red carpet, they were a big deal. People were going after them and like, oh, what are their stories? Oh my God, are they married for the 8th time? Are they this? Are they that? Just like, we do with the stars of today. They were such a big deal. They were it, right? That's what was active at that time. And now they're gone. And as enjoyable as that fame might have been, and for a lot of people, actually, it's not enjoyable, right? It leads to a lot of depression and difficulty. But as fabulous as it seems, it's temporary, right? It is temporary. And so having this concept of what is temporary and what is permanent at the forefront of our minds is a huge favor to us because it puts things in perspective. Again, we have to protect ourselves from becoming morbid about it. It's not like, like your kids are like pulling on you, or your spouse or your parents or your friends want to hang out with you. You're like, nope, nope, I got to prepare. I got to prepare. It's not like that, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it clear that even in Ramadan, spouses should be intimate in the nights of Ramadan. When you think in Ramadan, people should be praying and making dua, for hours and hours and hours, but it's mentioned in the Quran, right? That's a worldly thing, right? But subhanAllah, there is this connection, okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us when their specified time arrives, they cannot delay it for a single hour, nor can they bring it forward, right? It's there, it's coming, it's coming. And I don't know about you guys, but I do better under pressure. If I know there's a time limit to things, I do better. Kind of like that typical college student who's like one student, their professor gave them a month to write their paper, and another student, the professor gave them a week, right? I bet you the kid who had a week wrote it quicker, for sure he wrote it faster. He was done. Both were finished on time. But one kid, it took him a week to work on it. The other one took him a month. He was working on it for 30 days, right? Took forever, right? Or if you're going to travel somewhere, if you have a month to get ready to travel, you will be shopping for a month, right? Every day, like, oh, maybe I'll stop here, maybe I'll stop there. If you have 2 days to prepare to go overseas, you will be done in 2 days, right? You'll get whatever you need quickly, you're done, you're good to go. We are all on this clock, right? What is the most important thing I need to do today? And every single day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already structured us with a reminder, with an alarm clock that rings after our actual alarm clock wakes us up. What do we say? Alhamdulillah alladhi ahyana ba'da ma amatana wa ilayhi nushur. We say all praise belongs to Allah, praise and thanks. We're grateful to Allah and we're praising Him, the one who gave us life after He gave us death, and to Him is my return, right? Not only does Allah give us this daily, nightly reminder of this kind of minor death that we experience. Sleep is so amazing, but it's so weird, right? It's really weird. And even like, I don't know if this has happened to you guys, but like, that when you're falling asleep, but you're kind of between sleep and wakefulness, and then like a sound wakes you up and you almost feel like you died. Like I feel like, I'm like, oh my God, did I die? Like it feels weird, right? But then you go into that sleep and it's just weird. You don't feel anything and you're just down, and you wake up and you're refreshed. It's subhanAllah, it's amazing, but it's weird, right? So every single day we're given that same reminder, that same activation of our purpose, right? So when we say that dua in the morning, that Ya Allah, you took my life in a sense. You gave it back to me. Thank you so much. And then we end it with wa ilayhi nushur. And to you, to Allah is the return, right? That sense of purpose is there again and again every single morning, right? Because that's the truth. That's really what matters most. And so if I start off my day with that and I'm saying it for real, it's not just on my tongue, I'm really saying it and I mean it. Now the rest of my day has everything to do with, oh my God, I have today to do great, to rake up my hasanat, to get a whole bunch of reward, to pick up, a piece of trash along the way, because that's a sadaqah, to smile at people, to try to activate my patience in moments where it's very difficult to be patient, right? To make sure I'm focusing more on my salah, right? Every moment is an opportunity to prepare and to excel at preparing for our death, right? So that's one way to make sure we activate our purpose and keep it alive and running, okay? The second thing I want to share with you guys is this idea of a dunya akhirah connection, okay? One thing that Ramadan does for us is it reignites that connection. There is a connection between our dunya and our akhirah. We are living proof of the connection of dunya, which is the seen world, and the akhirah, the unseen world, Okay. The unseen world also consists of angels, as far as we're concerned, jinn, heaven, hell, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Things that we don't see. The future is unseen. 10 minutes from now, I have no idea what's going to happen. That's unseen for us, right? Our dunya life and our akhirah life are very much connected, okay? And Ramadan is a time that enhances the proof of that. And here's why. First of all, this is a month of our dunya, right? It's a month of time of our lives here. The time that is in this dunya that's being used to connect to something that happened between the heavens and the earth, right? This revelation that came down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came from the heavens, came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it came down to earth, right? Our souls themselves, these are things we can't touch. Our soul, we don't know much about our souls, right? Allah doesn't tell us much in the Quran about our souls. It is in a sense, I don't want to say it's an unseen thing, but we don't see it, okay? And we didn't see our souls before we came to this earth, right? So when our souls are brought down to this earth and put into a body, right, which is our vehicle, these vehicles for these souls to roam the earth, and we are a living proof of that dunya akhirah connection. And I'll tell you why I'm trying to make this connection, and it's so important for us to do so. But Ramadan does this, where Ramadan is all about that one special day where the entire Quran was brought down to our sky, right? And then it was slowly revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. And so as that happened, there's this connection between the dunya and the unseen, the seen and the unseen, dunya and akhirah. And even when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, Baraka radiallahu anha, who was his nurse, his nanny, she raised him, and of course she was one of the sahabiyat. She would cry so much when the Prophet ﷺ died. And people thought she was crying because she missed the Prophet ﷺ, which of course I'm sure she did. But she was saying, I'm not crying because the Prophet ﷺ is gone. I'm crying because the connection between us and revelation has been cut off, right? That's what made her so sad, okay? So we get a piece of that in a sense because we get to experience the night of power, Laylatul Qadr, every single year. It's that connection between us and the unseen world, right? What's really important about this? Dunya akhirah connection, unseen, seen world. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals a book to us, guidance for the rest of humanity. And in this book, it speaks to our humanity, okay? The reason I'm bringing this up is there's a lot of Islamic content out there, whether it's written or it's through video, like lectures and things like that, where there's almost like shaming people and shaming them for being human, right? Where it's almost like you're being yelled at. Like, how many of us do this? How many of us forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How many of us, we don't pray our prayers? Okay, you're right. A lot of us don't. But we should not be yelling at each other, first of all. Second of all, the Quran was exactly designed for those of us who are praying and those of us who are not praying. It's designed for all of us. It's designed for those of us who are addicted to drugs and those of us who have never touched drugs in their life, right? It's designed for those who fall into inclinations that are not in line with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's okays and what He's okay with. And they're designed for those who've been following Islam since they were born, right? It's designed for all of us. And so what's so important for us as Muslims during Ramadan and outside of Ramadan is, how do I make my dunya akhirah connection? Because that's what's going to bring me closer to not only understanding Allah's guidance in the Quran, but it's also going to make it practical. It's going to make it relatable, right? When the Prophet ﷺ tells, a young man that he's not allowed to kiss his wife while he's fasting in Ramadan, and he tells an older man, you're allowed, right? He's taking their humanity into consideration when giving them an okay or not okay, right? That is Islam. That is Islam. And so for us, we have to make sure that we are constantly, in order to activate our purpose, keep our purpose moving and alive in our hearts, we have to make sure we are making realistic connections to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us through his hadith and through his example. This is real, right? Allah treats us as we are. This isn't like this weird, like, we're supposed to be these proper, perfect beings, and then we can receive revelation. That's not how it works. None of us are perfect. None of us. We're supposed to be real. We're supposed to be human. We're supposed to be ourselves. We're supposed to tell Allah, Ya Allah, I am inclined towards A, B, and C. I know you don't like it. I don't like it either, but I am having a hard time. Please help me. And then we go into the Quran and we reflect, right? Allah tells us I forgot what surah it's in, this is a blessed book which we have revealed to you that they might reflect upon its verses and that those of understanding would be reminded, right? We are meant to read Quran and reflect. That's what we're meant to do. When Allah tells us in Surah Al-Taghabun, مَا أَصَابَ مِن مُصِيبَةٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ, that no catastrophe happens except that it was exactly meant for it to come to exactly you, number one. And number two, it happened by the will of Allah, right? What does that do for us? If you think about it, especially in the times we're in, it's like, dude, like this is exactly what was supposed to happen. Everything that is happening right now is exactly what was supposed to happen. Once we accept that, guess what it does? It frees us up to actually do something effective, to help change or move ourselves or move somebody else or change our perspective on something, right? It frees us up. It makes that space. But if we don't reflect on the ayat, if we don't reflect on these verses every single day, just a little bit, right? Or many days, forget every single day. If that's too much, start with twice a week, right? Mondays and Thursdays. You're gonna sit down right after Fajr, right after Dhuhr, right after some simple act that you do, some trigger for you. You're gonna sit down, open up your Quran app if you have, on your phone, or open up a Mus'haf and read one ayah, read the translation and be like, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for America right now? What does this mean for racial justice and equality? How do I bring that to the table? Allah gave us so much guidance and clarity. How do I take that guidance and bring it to the world? First, bring it to my own heart, right? Our poor little hearts that really we're crushed under all these things that are happening. It's heartbreaking. Wallahi, it's heartbreaking. And we need this for our own hearts. We need it for our families, right? Whether you have kids or not, whether you're married or not, whoever your family is today, our families need this, right? We can bring that to our families, then to our friends in our community, and then to the whole world in whatever form. Just by being ourselves and being our best selves, it affects the whole world, subhanAllah. So keep that dunya akhirah connection. That is your relationship with Allah. Nobody can tell you that there's a problem with you that you can't have a relationship with Allah. We're meant to be imperfect and to maintain that connection between dunya and akhirah, between like, oh, Allah designed this dunya to fit me perfectly, to serve me perfectly, right? The things that grow out of the ground that I eat, those were designed for me. It's got nutrients and minerals that I need. The water, that spring water, is perfectly for my body, right? The guidelines that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us are perfectly designed to find success in the dunya and success in the akhirah. There is no separation. And that's where we have to make sure we're taking our deen into every aspect of our lives, right? When we're on vacation, the rules of that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lay out for us, they don't change, right? Hijab is still hijab, whether we're, somewhere beautiful with, water and whatever, the same rules of hijab are there. The same rules of eating. We can't just like, like when you're on vacation, you almost feel like you could eat anything and you're not going to gain weight. I don't know why this happens to me on the plane. I'm like, yeah, give me a third Reese's. I'll be fine. I'm traveling, For some reason, it seems like okay. But I feel like sometimes when, it's your wedding day, right? And you wear hijab, all of a sudden, it feels okay to let loose a little bit, right? Our dunya akhirah connection will not allow us to do that because there is no disconnect. But we have to keep that connection activated so that in those moments where it feels okay, we're reminded, but what is my greater purpose here? And how do I maintain what I want, the desire I have within those limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I will end with a dua. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. We ask Allah always that, Ya Allah, you please give us good in this life and good in the akhirah and protect us from the hellfire. That dua is so beautiful. If you haven't memorized it, memorize it and say it because it covers everything, right? And it's very similar to almost that morning dua, you know? سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.